They wanted a confession. She gave them a timestamp, a glitch in the geolocation, and a silence that cracked louder than any denial. Now, Internal Affairs is listening, and she's not the one sweating. The fluorescent lights in interview room 3 always buzzed slightly, but tonight, the hum was deafening. I could hear the ticking of the cheap plastic clock on the wall, matching the rhythm of my pulse. Across the metal table, Detective Rowan leaned back in his chair, a thick folder resting untouched in front of him. He wasn't speaking. Not yet. He liked to wait, to fill the silence with pressure. I didn't blink. He slid the folder forward with a single finger and flipped it open with a slow, theatrical flair. Printed stills from the CCTV feed, grainy, colorless snapshots frozen in time, stared back at me. A corridor. A door. My silhouette entering the building. The timestamp in the bottom corner read 16:41:28. "You entered first," he said, voice calm but razor-edged. "Before anyone else. Before the incident." I leaned back in my chair, the cool metal biting through the thin fabric of my uniform. The heat of his accusation lingered in the air, thick and stale like the coffee breath he tried to mask with mints. I didn't flinch. "I know what you're thinking," Rowan continued almost kindly. "It's not personal. But with everything Internal Affairs is looking into, this doesn't look good for you." My eyes drifted to the corner of the table, where my department-issued tablet lay untouched, screen dark. I'd brought it in myself. No one had asked for it yet. No one realized what it contained. Outside the one-way mirror, I knew they were watching. Internal Affairs. Probably 2, maybe 3 of them. Suits instead of uniforms. Observing, logging, preparing to weaponize Policy 9.3, our precious procedural Bible, if I so much as misquoted a line. "I suggest you start talking," Rowan said. "Or they will." I met his gaze finally. Held it. "Then let them," I said quietly, and reached for the tablet. There was no drama in the way I tapped the screen, no flourish, just the dull glow of truth as the access log came to life. My fingerprint unlocked it. I navigated to the entry logs without hesitation. Scroll, scroll, stop. I rotated the screen and slid it toward him. Check the timestamp. He squinted at it, leaning closer. 16:42:03, my credentialed swipe in, not 16:41, not even close. The system only validated building access after the full biometric sequence, and the CCTV clip only captured me walking through the vestibule. "This doesn't match your entry on the footage," Rowan muttered, "because the camera covers the hallway, not the lock panel. You know that." Behind the glass, someone stood abruptly. I saw the shadow. Internal Affairs had seen it too. Rowan frowned, chewing the inside of his cheek. "Could be a system error." "Check the geolocation metadata on my badge," I said evenly. "It pings only when access is confirmed. It didn't trigger at 16:41. He stared at the tablet for a long time, long enough that the silence thickened again. When he finally rose and walked to the door, I didn't move, didn't smirk, didn't breathe too deeply, just sat with the weight of what I knew. That truth has no volume, but it echoes louder than accusation. And this wasn't over, because the person who swiped in before me wasn't me. Somebody forged the timeline. They thought the footage was final. But I knew where to find the real proof, and I wasn't done yet. It took them 40 minutes to reconvene. Long enough for the air in the interview room to go sour and still. Long enough for doubt to try and worm its way in. But I'd been in this chair before. Not as the accused, no. As the observer. The report writer. The one collecting body cam footage and piecing together truths in Excel sheets, while others played hero with guns drawn. That made me quiet, not innocent. The door opened with a slow, exaggerated groan, Detective Rowan stepped back in first, followed by a woman I hadn't seen before, dark navy suit, thin-framed glasses, and a badge that glinted cold under the fluorescent light. Internal Affairs. She didn't sit, didn't blink, just opened a tablet and said, "Agent Lyle, I'm reviewing access anomalies tied to badge ID 63307. That's yours?" "Yes," I answered. She tapped something. "Per the building's server, your badge logged a door unlock at 1642:03. However, CCTV footage places you in the west hallway by 1641:28. Can you explain that?" I didn't bother hiding my smile. Gladly. I turned my own device to face them, now with the full access audit trail displayed. Not just the entry point, but back-end logs of the biometric delays and timing inconsistencies. The kind no one bothered to look at unless they knew where glitches hide. "Watch the delay," I said. "The swipe gets recorded in the system after both thumbprint and retina scan complete. That alone takes an average of 14-18 seconds. If the door camera caught me at 1641:28, it aligns with me standing at the threshold." Agent Lyle nodded slightly but didn't speak. "And," I continued, "the geolocation metadata on my badge confirms no interior access until 1642. You can match it against the body cam time sync. I ran into Officer Meyer in the lobby just after entry." Rowan scoffed, low and bitter. "Are you suggesting we tampered with the timeline?" "I'm suggesting your evidence is incomplete," I replied. "Conveniently." Lyle spoke again, voice even. "And the system error?" "It's not an error. It's a known delay in our locking mechanism. I filed an internal note about it last month. You'll find it archived under Policy 9.3 subsection E, which requires timestamp correlation from two systems before presuming misconduct." She looked at Rowan. "Did you cross-check her badge against the elevator access logs?" He didn't respond, because they hadn't. Because this wasn't about truth. It was about making the footage fit the narrative. And narratives, they're easy to bend when no one asks about the metadata. I sat back in my chair as Agent Lyle stepped out to make a call. I didn't ask who she was calling. I already knew. The person who entered at 1639, the one they hadn't mentioned yet. But I was done handing out favors for free. Let them dig. I'd already planted the shovel. They framed the timeline to make me the first. But I wasn't even close, and now their silence says more than the footage ever did. Ever been blamed because it was easier than asking questions? Drop a comment. You're not alone. They pushed the footage. She brought the facts. The hallway outside interview room 3 was oddly quiet when they escorted me out. Not the usual echo of boots on tile or the hum of gossip disguised as hallway updates. Just silence, sharp, anticipatory. Agent Lyle walked ahead, her clipboard tight under one arm, while Rowan trailed just behind me, muttering into his radio. I caught snippets. Badge logs, elevator overlay, pulled footage from 1639. I wasn't meant to hear, but I did. And more importantly, I understood what they were dancing around. The real entry had already happened. Someone got in before me, and they'd either ignored it or buried it. They led me to a conference room 2 floors up. Bigger table, better coffee. Still not an apology. 2 other IA agents were already there, one projecting a side-by-side on the screen, CCTV footage versus building access logs. It was like watching 2 versions of reality argue with each other. "Ms. Ramirez," said Lyle, not unkindly, "we need to confirm the integrity of this geolocation data you mentioned. Do you authorize cross-access to your badge history and movement profile for the past 48 hours? I nodded. Authorized? Even off duty? I didn't flinch. Even then. They started syncing systems. Badge ID to door access, badge to elevators, badge to body cam pings, badge to workstation logins. the room filled with the quiet friction of digital truths aligning. Then something happened. The projection flickered, and suddenly a third timeline populated the screen. An unknown access at 1639:12. No name, no badge, just admin override. The room shifted. One of the agents leaned forward. "There's no override scheduled in the audit logs." Lyle's tone hardened. "Cross it with the internal elevator diagnostics. If it skipped floor 1 and went straight to sublevel, we've got unauthorized routing." I sat back, arms crossed. They'd tried to bury that access. Whoever it was hadn't used a standard badge. They used admin credentials, the kind you only get from operations, or higher. Rowan looked visibly uncomfortable now. "That's not possible. Those keys are locked down." "Then someone unlocked them," I said. "And you were too busy framing me over a CCTV angle to check the back door." Agent Lyle didn't respond. She just turned to one of the techs. "I want the body cam footage from Officer Meyer. Entry timestamp 1642 to 1650. I want to know if he saw anyone else in that hallway." The truth wasn't in the footage anymore. It was in the silence, in the missing entries, the absence of logs where they should have been. I hadn't just cleared my name. I'd exposed a gap big enough for someone to walk straight through, unseen, unchecked, and possibly carrying something they never intended to log. The footage from Officer Meyer's body cam wasn't dramatic, but it was damning. It started as expected. Him walking into the lobby, nodding to reception, adjusting his radio. The timestamp blinked in the corner, 1642:08. As he turned left toward the elevators, the lens caught a brief reflection in the glass. A second figure, moving fast, slipping into the maintenance stairwell. No uniform, no badge, no reason to be there. The clip paused, and the room fell silent. "Can you enhance that frame?" Agent Lyle asked, not looking away from the screen. The tech tapped rapidly. The image zoomed, pixelated, but the silhouette was undeniable. Male, tall, wearing department-issued tactical boots. Rowan ran a hand through his hair. "That stairwell doesn't have camera coverage. It's a blind zone." "Convenient," I murmured. Agent Lyle turned to me. "Did you see anyone in the stairwell?" "No, but I did hear footsteps echoing above me while I waited for the elevator. Thought it was just a janitor on the landing." She nodded. "It wasn't." I knew what was coming next. They would triangulate access log timestamps with elevator usage, internal stairwell doors, and any card swipes at the emergency exits. But they'd already seen it. There was no card swipe. That person didn't use a badge. They used override codes. Codes only a handful of people had. "I want a list of everyone with administrative access to Floor 3's maintenance doors," Lyle ordered, "and pull login data from server room terminals between 1630 and 1700. One of the agents pulled up the Policy 9.3 matrix, tapping through access control exceptions. "There are only 4 active override codes assigned today," he said, voice clipped. "One belongs to Captain Hensley." I froze. Captain Hensley wasn't just operations. He was the one who sent me the building that day. He'd CC'd me on a Correios thread about malfunctioning door access and asked me to verify it in person. Told me he didn't trust the logs and needed eyes on site. Had he been sending me into a pre-written alibi? Rowan cleared his throat. "Hensley logged out of the system at 1558 according to the admin server." Lyle narrowed her eyes. "Except, the server doesn't track terminal timeouts, just command logs. If he stayed logged in, someone else could have used his access. Unless Hensley was still in the building. Unless he never logged out. Unless this entire narrative was a setup. And I'd been the disposable thread." I looked at the screen, at the blurred shadow in the body cam footage, and felt something colder than accusation settle in my chest. Someone had wanted me there at that time. but they hadn't planned on me fighting back. The office smelled of burnt coffee and ozone, the telltale scent of overheated servers in the adjacent IT room. I sat at a side terminal now, not in custody, but still watched. A junior analyst from IA hovered nearby, typing frantically, eyes darting between screens. Agent Lyle stood behind him, arms crossed, lips pursed in concentration. The CCTV stills were spread out beside her, annotated now, overlapping red circles, timestamps, and one image printed darker than the rest. The grainy silhouette on the stairwell landing at 1639. They'd found the elevator bypass logs. They'd found the override ID. And now they were about to confirm what I already suspected. "Here," the analyst muttered, voice tight. "Terminal login from admin 42, floor 3, server room, time-stamped 1626 to 1653, executed 3 commands. 2 were diagnostic scripts. The third—" He stopped. "What?" Lyle asked. He turned the screen toward her. I leaned in. "Command 3, CCTV buffer overwrite queued at 164013, execution timestamp 164106. Silence. That meant the footage showing me entering first wasn't just misinterpreted, it was deliberately planted. "Who has admin 42? Lyle asked, already knowing the answer. The analyst didn't hesitate. "Hensley." Rowan swore under his breath, stepping back from the table as if proximity made him complicit. Lyle stared at the screen, then finally turned to me. "Do you have anything else you haven't shared?" I hesitated, not because I wanted to withhold, but because revealing it would make me the center of something much darker than a bad timeline. But I was past the point of fear now. I unlocked my tablet one more time and pulled up an archived Correo, a forwarded thread Hensley sent me that morning. In it, he'd requested I verify inconsistencies in the access log. He claimed that the door readers were logging multiple badge swipes out of sequence. The problem? The log files he attached were fake. I'd checked the hash codes the moment I received them. Out of habit. They didn't match the server's main backups. He wasn't trying to investigate a breach. He was writing one. "Why didn't you say anything earlier?" Rowan asked, voice accusing, almost pleading. "Because I didn't know what game he was playing, and you were too busy pointing cameras at my face to ask." Lyle stepped forward. Her voice dropped. "You realize what this means, right?" I nodded. "He framed me, used me to plug a hole, but whatever he was hiding, it had nothing to do with me." Outside the conference room window, the hallway filled with motion. 2 IA agents flanked Captain Hensley now, walking him quietly but firmly toward the end of the hall. He didn't look angry. He looked prepared, which meant this wasn't over, not by a long shot. They processed Hensley fast, too fast. By the time I stepped into the hallway, his body cam had already been pulled, his badge deactivated, and his access revoked across the department's core systems. The IA agents moved with clinical precision, like they'd done this before. Maybe they had. But something felt off. He didn't argue. He didn't ask for counsel. He just went. Agent Lyle caught my expression. "We have what we need. We've secured his devices, cloned his terminal, and filed the override abuse under internal flag 12. You're in the clear, Ramirez." But that wasn't the point. "I'm not worried about me," I said quietly. "I'm worried about what he left behind." She narrowed her eyes. "You think someone else is involved?" "No, I think someone else is protected." Lyle exhaled. "Come with me." We took the elevator down to sublevel 2, the part of the building where network backups were kept. The cold air hit hard, the hum of rack servers vibrating through the floor. There, behind a keypad door, sat a terminal connected to a secured drive, the backup locker. It was supposed to mirror all department files, including CCTV access logs and body cam syncs, untouched, unfiltered, immutable. Except it wasn't. One of the backup nodes had been tampered with. Subtle, elegant, metadata still intact. But one partition had been overwritten with a cloned archive from 2 weeks ago. He replaced the locker image, Lyle muttered. No wonder the system didn't flag anything. The dates match. But I pointed to the screen. Not exactly. The geolocation ping of my badge at 164203, the one that cleared me, was missing from the backup image, but it existed in the live system, which meant someone tried to erase it, to leave me just 1 second short of innocent. I stepped closer. He wanted me close enough to take the fall, but not enough to ask real questions if I hadn't checked the biometric logs. Lyle looked pale now. He didn't just frame you, he covered for someone else. A third set of admin override keys existed, keys we never tracked because they were never used, not in the system, not on the books, physical hardware, a silent code, a ghost credential. Check the hardware logs, I said. Look for dongle access, USB-A ports, anything plugged in between 1620 and 17 DAS. The analyst complied. His face turned white. Found one, he whispered. Port 3, external key, no signature. Someone else had been there, and they didn't just override Hensley's timeline. They wrote their own. The deeper we dug, the quieter the room became. No one spoke when the analyst pulled up the dongle's activity log. No one blinked when he showed that it had mounted for exactly 81 seconds, just long enough to inject a set of admin-level commands, overwrite a backup image, and reroute one of the building's biometric sync relays. Agent Lyle stared at the terminal like it had insulted her. No signature, no internal ID, and no MAC address binding? She asked, already knowing the answer. None, the analyst confirmed. This wasn't a department-issued key. It was custom. It spoofed our protocol headers, bypassed authorization, and masked itself as a firmware update. A ghost in the system. Someone had planned this with precision, not just Hensley. This wasn't sloppy corruption. It was practiced, clean, cold. I stepped forward. Pull server room access for the last 90 days. I want badge swipes, manual override entries, and any IT-level work orders tied to firmware or software maintenance. Rowan, silent since Hensley's arrest, finally spoke. That's a hell of a list. I looked at him. You think we're still just trying to clear my name? He looked away. The report compiled slowly, line by line. Only 8 people had physical access to the server room in the last 3 months. 3 were tech contractors. 4 were department IT. The 8th, Deputy Chief Lorna Greaves. My stomach dropped. She's been on medical leave, Lyle said flatly. Knee surgery, out for 6 weeks. The analyst shook his head. Not according to the logs. There's a swipe entry. Deputy Greaves, July 17th, 2212. Server room access, manual override, no task order, no accompanying personnel. And no corresponding body cam footage, I added. Lyle stared at the screen. She must have used Hensley's system access, or he used hers. Either way, it meant only one thing. There was someone above Hensley, someone deeper. I felt it in my spine now, that humming pressure of being watched, like we were no longer investigating a frame-up, but walking directly into the blueprint of something still moving. I leaned closer to the screen. Was the dongle used on July 17th? The analyst nodded. Yes, same port, same pattern. I turned to Lyle. Then Hensley wasn't the architect. He was just the lockpick. And someone else had the blueprints. The walls of the sub-level server room felt tighter now. Not physically, but in that psychological way, like air had turned to paste, and every movement was louder than it should be. We weren't just looking at a frame job anymore. We were looking at a designed failure, orchestrated from inside, stitched through the seams of department protocol, camouflaged in CCTV blind spots, access log gaps, and Policy 9.3 loopholes so subtle it made you question your own memory. Lyle stepped away from the terminal and pulled out her phone. Not department-issued, a personal line. She spoke in low tones, giving badge numbers, timestamps, even the dongle port IDs. Whoever she was calling didn't argue. Rowan stayed back, arms crossed, but the color had drained from his face. "Greaves?" he asked. "You're sure?" "No," I said. But whoever was behind this used her access, her badge, and her absence. That's the thing about absences. They're just as useful as presence when you want to stay invisible. Agent Lyle turned to me. "If they used Greaves's profile, we'll need to pull any reports she approved, denied, or left unsigned in the last 90 days, and any correos related to overtime or contractor credentialing." I froze. "I have one." I reached into my tablet archives again, pulling up an old correo thread from July. Subject line, "Maintenance badge assignment approval." It was short, formal, but it had Greaves's signature authorizing a temporary ID for a visiting network specialist. No company listed, just an initial. JC. The analyst scanned the system. That ID was active for 3 days, no biometric scan attached, only override credentials. "So we don't know who JC is?" Lyle asked. "No, but..." He paused, scrolling. "But what?" I pushed. "There's a partial body cam capture from Officer Detmer, July 18th. He passed someone in the server hallway. Not in uniform, not wearing visitor colors. It only caught a flash, but..." He enhanced the frame. A man in gray, black bag, walking calmly, confidently, not rushed, not lost, like he belonged there. And on the side of his shoulder, barely visible, a patch with a company logo we all recognized. Novensec, private contractors, licensed for infrastructure, but never cleared for secure departments like ours. "He had no clearance," I muttered. "Which means Greaves gave it to him," Lyle added. "Off the books." That was the crack. Greaves had used Hensley as her cover, the loud shield, while this ghost, this JC, moved freely in the silence, rewriting system histories like it was just another Tuesday. I looked back at the screen and felt it settle in my bones. I hadn't just walked into a bad timeline. I'd stepped across someone's carefully constructed firewall, and now I had their IP address. They didn't want me to find him. That much was clear by the time the access logs stopped syncing. The data pipeline from the backup servers glitched. Not once, not randomly, but in rhythm. Every 12 seconds, a clean gap. Identical in length. Identical in placement. A digital heartbeat. "Someone scripted this," the analyst muttered, half in awe, half in fear. "It's not deletion, it's redirection. Every time we query logs involving JC's ID, it reroutes the response to a dummy buffer filled with recycled timestamps." Lyle rubbed her temples. "A live ghost protocol. This isn't IT anymore. This is surgical." But I wasn't surprised. You don't build a frame-up this elegant with just brute access. You build it like a story, scene by scene, and someone in this building had written it as if I were the final paragraph. "We need a name," I said, "or at least a face." "Working on it," the analyst replied. "I'm cross-referencing CCTV reflections from hallways, glass doors, even elevator panel chrome. If he was near any camera with any angle, we'll find him." Rowan raised a brow. "You ever worked counter-ops?" I didn't answer, because technically I hadn't. But truth? This felt less like an investigation now, and more like chess, And I'd been walking their board long enough to feel the edge of the check. Then it happened. The analyst froze. Got something. He rotated the screen. Elevator cam, July 18th. Time, 16:44:37. A slow pan as the doors closed, and just before they sealed, a hand reaches out to stop them. Not Greaves, not Hensley, someone else. The camera caught the upper body. Clean blazer, no badge, sunglasses, inside, and that same Novensec logo on the right lapel. Clear as day. The facial match wasn't hard. A quick scan through contractor archives, private sector clearances, vendor badge databases. His name lit up the screen. Jonathan Creed. Internal designation, former DHS subcontractor. Clearance revoked in 2020 for unsanctioned system access and unauthorized data retention. How the hell did he get in here? Rowan asked. Lyle was already moving. Because someone let him. I was already pulling up my old Correo chain, Greaves' approval signature. She hadn't just authorized a technician. She'd let a disgraced federal contractor into our server room with no badge photo, no biometric link, and override credentials built from admin bones. And now, he was gone. Creed hadn't made a mistake. He'd used my timeline to cover his real entry. He didn't just want me erased. He wanted what he left behind to stay hidden. I leaned over the terminal. Pull everything tied to his access window. Internal downloads, packet sniffers, terminal injection logs. I don't care if it's hex code or printer cues. I want it all. Because Creed wasn't running. He was hiding inside the system. He wasn't hiding in the system. He was the system. At least for that 81-second window, when he rewrote logs, injected data, masked biometric syncs, and scheduled deletion of anything tethered to his real location. And now that his name, Jonathan Creed, had surfaced, everything else was trying to disappear behind it. We started pulling packet-level traces. The analyst ran a forensic packet sniff on all internal traffic between 1630 and 7 times, targeting anomalies, manual script injections, and any uploads tagged to foreign endpoints. 3 hits, 3 distinct data transfers, encrypted, buried in maintenance server logs, destination IPs, masked, VPN layered and bouncing. But one string of metadata didn't match any department file. It was tagged FML 473 prot. What's that? Lyle asked. The analyst swallowed. That's not ours. He clicked deeper. The file name was deceptively simple. Report to 1.xlsx. But when he opened it, only after isolating it from the network, it wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a compiled encryption key, 256-bit, hard-coded, labeled with a series, door prot A, floor 2, redact 9-3. I stepped back. He didn't just clone data, he cloned control protocols. Policy 9.3, Lyle whispered. That's not just investigative procedure. That's command routing. Exactly. Creed hadn't come for footage. He'd come to take something off the system, something protected by Policy 9.3, buried deep in redacted security control branches. He didn't alter evidence, he extracted immunity. Find out what was on floor 2, redact 9.3, I said. Whatever it was locked behind a biometric firewall, and Creed just walked out with the override. The analyst froze. We can't, he said slowly. That section of the policy manual was wiped yesterday. The archive was overwritten from a flagged admin ID. Whose? Silence. Then Greaves. She'd vanished from the system, not suspended, not locked, just vanished. Her badge, her access logs, her email. It was like she'd never existed, and the department had never asked why. Because maybe someone told them not to. Because maybe the silence was the real evidence. I looked at the last visible body cam sync from the corridor near the server room. And there she was. Greaves, standing alone, talking to someone just out of frame. Then she turned and handed them something black, palm-sized. The dongle.